Hey guys, this is going to be a short video. I could make way for another video. I just want to get a quick video out. The title of this one is going to be called "The Scams of Gangstalking." And what I mean by that are basically I'm going to go straight into it. I've already touched on this before. I'm going to go a little further in depth. Like I said, 8-minute and 18-second video. By the scams, we're talking about, if you're new to this or you've been doing this, you know what I'm talking about. The scams, medical fraud, identity theft. People will steal your credentials. They will invade your privacy. Lately, I've been having issues, with my new to laptop I bought. It's probably about a month or so old, maybe a month and a half old, almost less than 2 months old. I've got to restart it all the time to log back into the Wi-Fi. I've got to charge it up constantly, losing battery. Don't know why that is. Constant malfunctions with electronics, which is definitely comes from the spiritual realm and dimension, I believe, but also, evil spirits and perps that are coming from that dimension. And I think really the whole illusion that they want on this, because gangstalking is a scam, but it's also a colluded effort in some cases, but not always. It doesn't always have to be that way, but it really seems like there's a lot more people that are involved with it than what actually I think really are. So they're using, illusions of reality. They're using mental programming, and they're using the medical system to scam people. Once you start talking about this stuff, guys, warning, don't tell the cops. I know if you ask Chat GPT right now, this is what's sketchy about Chat GPT. You ask Chat GPT and certain artificial intelligences, what should I do if I'm being gangstalked? It'll tell you to contact the authorities. It'll tell you all sorts of shit because I already know that the responses it's giving me are congruent with being set up and incarcerated. Because once targets start talking about gang stalking, here's what always happens. Here's a scam. They get locked up, they get incarcerated, they get 72-hour holds. They'll call it cool down periods. I was told in the stress center, I was told to really almost like threatened for being a truth teller. We've got more proof about me telling the truth and being a whistleblower on feeling like I'm under surveillance by either the CIA, the FBI, the Illuminati. And I mentioned this at Aspire. And they asked me, why I'd been using drugs. I said, well, as a coping mechanism to sort of bury down the stress that I'm getting from obvious surveillance. And at first, a lot of people don't know what's going on. They just know that there's someone, it's the feeling of constantly being watched, either on your phone or a conversation you just had with someone. So they're invading our privacy there. They're looking at our conversations, and they are looking at our conversations, and they're going through them, and they're taking bits and pieces of information used to humiliate the targeted individual. Again, I'm going to make another video. It's going to be called the public humiliation ritual. And some people believe that ritual will eventually stop. They go through periods of time where they'll make it seem like they're stopping. After they workplace harass the target, they'll get their kids involved and walk out in public. And, they'll make it known that they're walking out in front of you. And they'll say things like, see, you don't want to end up like that person. Or you don't, you better work hard and go to school. They'll say stuff like that right in front of my face. Or that's what happens when you question, they don't really say so much like, that's what happens when you question the system. I think some of them know that. That's why you don't, you keep. That's why all perpetrators and gang stalkers involved with the scam of human trafficking, this type of human trafficking, that's why they have tunnel vision, guys. Because it's not just that they're so focused and motivated on what they're doing. It's they're taking food off other people's plate that deserve it, like mine and other people, and they're putting it on their plate. They feel like they're entitled to it. They've been told that they deserve it over other people, and that they have the right to surveil people and watch people, and like I said, invade their privacy, write you off. So once you get out of the psychiatric unit, if you've been there, most targets have, and they'll force you in there. By the way, the police will traffic targets into psych units, and sometimes just kill them in there, and say that it was an accident or a self-inflicted harm. This last time that they had got me in the hospital, I was convinced they were trying to kill me. They had made me, right before I go into that, once you get out of the hospital, then you're labeled as a mental illness, as having a mental illness. But this last time I was in the hospital, I had multiple allergic reactions to some of the drugs they were giving me. I had told them I didn't want to take any of their drugs. I said on the street, I don't take drugs. Outside of this facility, I don't take any drugs. I said I smoke and drink. Smoke weed and drink. That's it. And I said I don't do that every day. I do it when I'm having, obviously, a lot of stress from organized, coordinated gang stalking. Another one they'll do is I've heard of people talking about organ trafficking or human trafficking for sex and organs. I've heard of that, the highest levels of gang stalking. Like, I've heard of sacrificial murders, which I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of your groups, like the Freemasons, your Scientologists, your Knight chivalric orders, your Templars, your Shriners, your they're all involved. They all at least have knowledge of gang stalking, and if they're not directly involved, they'll have lower ranks or lower level guys, or just like perpetrators from like local fraternities involved with it, or people that are even about to join one of those groups. There is a hierarchy to all these orders and fraternities. I've read articles that a lot of your fraternities are nothing more than recruitments areas for the Freemasons and some of these other occult orders. So then they call them orders, chapters, whatever the hell. Another thing they'll do is they'll drug your food and then call you crazy when you go to work, or they'll mess with your car. Say you get a new job, they'll mess with your car while you're on your way to work. They seem to pretend to be happy if I'm self-employed, yet I don't know if they've really been messing with that. I think they did, and then they made it seem like they didn't. And then I noticed on OfferUp recently, like say you're trying to sell something, like selling tangible products in a localized area, they will send perps in your inbox and to hit you up, like on OfferUp, like they're doing to me right now, and they'll make it seem like they're interested. They're interested, drop everything you're doing, and then they don't end up buying anything from you. Now, I never used to deal with that before I realized I was like really under surveillance, really being gang stalked. Like I said, guys, that pretty much wraps up this video in a nutshell. How we're being scammed. I mean, we're obviously being extorted money by having to repair our cars more often. Expenses, money we would have made, money that was prevented from being made, and additional costs and expenses through vehicle repairs and damaged property and vandalism. So they'll vandalize your property and damage, goods or food that you would have not otherwise had to replace. And that is in a basic format and a context of what I'm going to put in an 8-minute and 18-second video, what I got. With that, I'm going to go, guys. Be safe. And I'm just going to keep documenting everything. Bye.